The village of Tumba sat between two rivers, which meant it was green all year and never truly went hungry. The mango trees were fat with fruit, the soil was rich, the people were proud. And, like all proud places, Tumba had its rules. Not written rules, no one needed to write them down. They lived in the way people smiled at certain families and quietly looked away from others. They lived in how mothers introduced their daughters and fathers talked about their sons. They lived in the small daily judgments of ordinary people who believed they understood exactly what was good and what was not. By those rules, Lami was perfect. Lami was the daughter of the wealthiest cloth merchant in Tumba. She was graceful, tall, and soft-spoken. Her voice was so gentle that elders leaned forward just to catch her words. She never raised her tone. She never argued. She smiled at everyone, including people who did not deserve a smile, and her smile was so warm it made strangers feel welcome and enemies feel small without knowing why. Mothers pointed at Lami when scolding their daughters. Why can you not be more like Lami? Lami never shouts. Lami never argues. Lami is the kind of woman a man is lucky to find. And then there was Amara. Amara was also tall, also had good features, but everything else about Amara was the opposite of Lami, and the village made sure she never forgot it. Amara was the daughter of Baba Kofi, a firewood cutter who worked from sunrise to sunset and had just enough to live. They were not broken. They had food and a roof, but they had no savings, no land, no name that opened doors. What Amara had instead was a voice that could cut through noise like a machete through thick bush, and eyes that seemed to see through everything, through politeness, through performance, through the careful masks that people wear when they want to appear good but are doing something else entirely. She saw through it all, and she said what she saw, out loud, without asking for permission. The market. It was a Wednesday. The market was full, the way Tumba's market always was, noisy, crowded, alive with bargaining and the smell of dried fish and fresh tomatoes. Amara came to buy pepper from Mama Duku's stall. Mama Duku had been selling spices in Tumba for 30 years. She had a wide smile and a habit of adjusting the scale when she thought no one was paying close attention. Amara was paying very close attention. "Mama Duku," Amara said, still calm. She always started calm. "That is not the right weight." "Mama Duku," Amara smiled, the smile of a woman who had done this 1,000 times and gotten away with it every time. "Amara, my daughter, prices have gone up. Fuel is expensive." "Mama Duku," Amara's voice was no longer calm, "I am not asking about fuel. I am asking about the 200 grams of pepper that were in my hand last week for this same price that are not in my hand today. Where did they go? Did the pepper travel somewhere?" People started turning to look. A young farmer nearby named Chidi, known to be kind and easygoing, stepped forward with a calm smile. "Sister Amara, perhaps we can resolve this quietly." Amara turned to him. "Chidi, did your mother send you here today to settle other people's market problems?" Chidi blinked. "Then go and carry your yams. When I need help, I will call for it." Mama Duku gave her the correct weight. Amara collected it, hissed once, long and low, and walked away without looking back. The whisper started immediately behind her. "That girl has no manners. Baba Kofi must be so tired. Any man who marries her will grow old fast." Amara heard all of it. She kept walking. The village of Tumba sat between two rivers, which meant it was green all year and never truly went hungry. The mango trees were fat with fruit, the soil was rich, the people were proud. And, like all proud places, Tumba had its rules. Not written rules, no one needed to write them down. They lived in the way people smiled at certain families and quietly looked away from others. They lived in how mothers introduced their daughters and fathers talked about their sons. They lived in the small daily judgments of ordinary people who believed they understood exactly what was good and what was not. By those rules, Lami was perfect. Lami was the daughter of the wealthiest cloth merchant in Tumba. She was graceful, tall, and soft-spoken. Her voice was so gentle that elders leaned forward just to catch her words. She never raised her tone. She never argued. She smiled at everyone, including people who did not deserve a smile, and her smile was so warm it made strangers feel welcome and enemies feel small without knowing why. Mothers pointed at Lami when scolding their daughters. Why can you not be more like Lami? Lami never shouts. Lami never argues. Lami is the kind of woman a man is lucky to find. And then there was Amara. Amara was also tall, also had good features, but everything else about Amara was the opposite of Lami, and the village made sure she never forgot it. Amara was the daughter of Baba Kofi, a firewood cutter who worked from sunrise to sunset and had just enough to live. They were not broken. They had food and a roof, but they had no savings, no land, no name that opened doors. What Amara had instead was a voice that could cut through noise like a machete through thick bush, and eyes that seemed to see through everything, through politeness, through performance, through the careful masks that people wear when they want to appear good but are doing something else entirely. She saw through it all, and she said what she saw, out loud, without asking for permission. The market. It was a Wednesday. The market was full, the way Tumba's market always was, noisy, crowded, alive with bargaining and the smell of dried fish and fresh tomatoes. Amara came to buy pepper from Mama Duku's stall. Mama Duku had been selling spices in Tumba for 30 years. She had a wide smile and a habit of adjusting the scale when she thought no one was paying close attention. Amara was paying very close attention. "Mama Duku," Amara said, still calm. She always started calm. "That is not the right weight." "Mama Duku," Amara smiled, the smile of a woman who had done this 1,000 times and gotten away with it every time. "Amara, my daughter, prices have gone up. Fuel is expensive." "Mama Duku," Amara's voice was no longer calm, "I am not asking about fuel. I am asking about the 200 grams of pepper that were in my hand last week for this same price that are not in my hand today. Where did they go? Did the pepper travel somewhere?" People started turning to look. A young farmer nearby named Chidi, known to be kind and easygoing, stepped forward with a calm smile. "Sister Amara, perhaps we can resolve this quietly." Amara turned to him. "Chidi, did your mother send you here today to settle other people's market problems?" Chidi blinked. "Then go and carry your yams. When I need help, I will call for it." Mama Duku gave her the correct weight. Amara collected it, hissed once, long and low, and walked away without looking back. The whisper started immediately behind her. "That girl has no manners. Baba Kofi must be so tired. Any man who marries her will grow old fast." Amara heard all of it. She kept walking.
Now, you need to understand who Elder Baba Seun was. He was not a king. Tumba had no king. But Baba Seun was something more quietly powerful. He was the man everyone went to when things went wrong. He was the keeper of the village land records. He settled disputes the official council could not resolve. He was the man whose presence at a funeral meant the dead were truly honored, and whose absence from a wedding made people wonder what the family had done wrong. He was in his late 70s. His hair had gone completely white. His back had developed a slow bend from decades of leaning over documents and listening to problems. But his eyes, dark, sharp, always slightly amused, had not aged one day. He had raised his nephew Dio after Dio's parents died in a flooding accident when Dio was 9. Dio was now 32, strong, capable, honest. He managed the land well. He was respected across the region. He was, by any ordinary measure, a good man. But something was wrong. It had been wrong for about a year, slowly, quietly, the way river water slowly hollows stone over time. You don't notice until the hollow is already deep. Dio was eating less, sleeping badly. His laughter had become rare, like rain in the dry season. You still heard it sometimes, but you were always slightly surprised. Baba Seun noticed. He noticed everything. He asked Dio what was wrong. Dio said he was tired. Baba Seun did not believe it, but did not push. He asked the village physician. The physician said it was stress, too much work, too much responsibility. Baba Seun sat with that answer for 3 weeks. Then he put it aside. He had lived too long to mistake simple tiredness for what he was seeing in Dio's eyes. What he saw was something being slowly taken from Dio, piece by piece, not from overwork, from something inside the household itself. The 2 advisors. Baba Seun had 2 men he kept closest in all village matters. The first was Malam Gero. Malam Gero was smooth, always dressed well. He knew exactly what to say to make a person feel heard without really listening. He had a talent for being in the right place at the right time and making it look like coincidence. In 15 years as Baba Seun's advisor, he had built a quiet network of small advantages, small contracts, small land arrangements, small financial decisions that individually appeared harmless, but together had made Malam Gero a quietly wealthy man at the village's expense. The other was Elder Pate, older, harder, a face like cracked dry earth. He was the kind of man who never said anything directly. Everything came sideways, wrapped in proverbs and old wisdom, so that by the time you realized what he had actually said, you had already agreed to it. Both men had been working on Dio for months. Small things, a word here that planted doubt, a quiet suggestion there that created distance. They had been steering him away from decisions that might bring outside attention to certain financial arrangements. Dio, being a good and trusting man, had not seen it. Why would he suspect the men his uncle trusted most? When Baba Seun told them he was thinking of finding Dio a wife, both men immediately said, "Lami." "Baba," Malam Gero said, his voice warm and easy, "Dio needs peace. Lami is peace itself. She will support him. She will never add noise to his life. A gentlewoman is exactly what a man in Dio's condition needs." Baba Seun listened. He looked at Malam Gero. He looked at Elder Pate. Then he looked at the door for a long moment. "Peace," he said slowly. "Yes, everyone wants Dio to have peace." What he did not say, what he kept very still and very private inside his chest, was what he had worked out 3 nights before. That the peace Malam Gero was describing was not the kind that heals a man. It was the peace of a man who has been made so comfortable, so surrounded by agreement and softness, that he stops asking questions. A gentle, agreeable wife would complete that work perfectly. A wife who never pushed back, or who noticed but never said. Baba Seun had seen this done before. He had seen it done to Dio's father 35 years ago. He was too young and too trusting to stop it then. He was not going to make that mistake again. 3 days after the announcement, the gathering took place at Baba Seun's main compound. It was large and old, with a great mango tree at the center that had stood longer than anyone alive could remember. Beneath it, the elders sat in their carved wooden chairs. Women came from 7 surrounding villages dressed in their finest wrappers, their best beads arranged on their necks like earned honors. They danced, they cooked, they answered questions about what kind of women they were and what kind of homes they would build.
Lami was the best by every possible measure. She danced with grace that made watching feel like a gift. Her pepper soup made 2 of the elder men close their eyes when they tasted it. When Malam Gero asked her what she believed the role of a wife was, she answered without hesitation: to support, to nurture, to be the quiet strength behind the man she stood beside. The compound cheered, old women nodded, mothers pointed at their daughters. This is how it is done. Then Amara arrived. She came late. She had not wanted to come at all. Her mother, Mama Kofi, had dragged her, half begging and half threatening, straightening Amara's wrapper 3 times on the walk over. "Please," Mama Kofi whispered, "just please, for once in your life, be normal for 2 hours." Amara made no promises. She wore a plain blue wrapper and flat shoes, no elaborate headgear. She stood at the edge of the gathering and looked at the whole event with the expression of someone watching a performance they had not chosen to attend. When it was her turn, Malam Gero looked up from his notes with a relaxed smile of a man who already knows the outcome. "Amara," he said pleasantly, "what would you do if the man you married made a decision you believed was wrong?" The compound went quiet. Everyone knew the correct answer. They had heard it several times already. "I would support him. I would pray for him. I would trust his wisdom." Amara looked at Malam Gero, then at Elder Pate, then at old Baba Sayun himself, who was watching her from his carved chair with an expression that nobody else in the compound seemed to notice. Not surprise, not amusement, but very close, careful attention. "You said furniture cannot protect you." "Yes," Amara said. "Have you ever needed protection?" Everyone needs protection. Most people are just too comfortable to notice when they are not getting it. Baba Sayun studied her face. Then he turned back to the compound. "I have made my decision. Dio will marry Amara, daughter of Kofi the firewood cutter." The silence lasted 3 full seconds. Then it broke into chaos. The village decided Baba Sayun had lost his mind. They said Amara had used something, herbs or a prayer from the wrong kind of healer. They passed the theory around the market every morning, like a piece of bread. The wedding happened anyway. Amara moved into Deo's household, a large compound with several rooms, 3 household helpers, and a cook named Emeka, who had been making the same 4 meals on rotation for 11 years and considered this a point of pride. On the first morning, Emeka brought breakfast to the main room, a large bowl of ogi and fried akara. Amara tasted the ogi. She set down her spoon. "Emeka," she said. "Yes, madam?" "In 11 years, did no one tell you the corn is not fully ground? These are not texture, these are mistakes. And the akara, how much oil did you use? My hand feels heavy just looking at it." She stood up. "Come, I will show you how to make this properly. Not because you are bad, because no one has shown you the right way." Emeka, who had expected to be angry, found himself in the kitchen watching Amara move with the speed and total focus of a woman who had been cooking for a large family since she was 11 years old. The meal she made was simple: smooth ogi, light akara, and a small pot of groundnut soup built from what was already in the kitchen. Deo tasted it. He went quiet in the way a person goes quiet when they realize they have been missing something without knowing they were missing it. He finished everything. He said nothing for a while. That night, he slept deeply for the first time in 11 months. In the weeks that followed, Amara moved through the household like a careful, thorough fire. She found the helper who had been taking small amounts of soap and kerosene home every week, not enough to be obvious, just enough to add up. She found the market shopping was being padded, helpers spending more than they reported in keeping the difference. She found that 3 storage rooms had not been properly cleaned in 2 years and were growing things storage rooms should not grow. She fixed all of it, not gently, not quietly, directly and completely. The household was terrified of her, and Deo started to look like himself again. Color returned to his face. He woke up earlier. His laughter came back, real laughter, the deep, honest kind. He told Baba Seun during one of their evening visits that he felt like someone had finally opened a window in a room that had been sealed shut for too long. Baba Seun nodded slowly and said nothing, but his eyes said something that looked very much like relief.
The harvest gathering was Tumba's biggest celebration of the year. The compound filled with drums and color. Women cooked in large pots. Children ran between adult legs. The smell of roasted corn and fresh palm oil stew moved through the air like a warm invitation. Baba Seun sat in his high chair at the center, in his deep orange wrapper. Beside him sat Dio, and anyone watching closely could see it. He looked like a completely different man from the one who had stood in this same compound a year ago. He was solid again, present. His eyes were clear. Beside Dio sat Amara. She wore a deep green wrapper with gold thread at the edges. Her headgear was properly tied. She was not smiling at the crowd. She was not waving. She sat straight and still and watchful, with the expression of someone running a quiet calculation that no one else can follow. The villagers whispered, "Look at her. Even at the harvest, she looks like she is about to argue with someone. See how Lami is dancing. That is who should be sitting there. God help Dio." As the celebration reached its loudest point, Malam Gero gave a small signal, a nod barely visible from across the compound. Lami stepped out from the group of dancing women. She was carrying a carved wooden cup filled with the village's best palm wine and the contents of the small clay container. The drums softened as she walked. People noticed her. Lami always drew attention when she moved. She crossed the compound with the grace that had always made everyone love her, her wrapper catching the light, her expression open and generous and warm. She reached the high table and knelt, a perfect, graceful kneel, her head bowed at exactly the right angle. "Baba Seun, and to Dio and his wife, the women of Tumba want to honor this household today. We know the first year of a marriage is not easy. We know there has been distance between neighbors. We offer this cup as a sign of peace, of new beginnings. Please drink." The compound murmured with approval. Old women pressed their palms together. Men nodded. Ah, Lami, always so good, always so thoughtful. Amara looked at the cup. She looked at Lami's hands, perfectly steady. She looked at Malam Gero across the compound, who was watching with the focused attention of a man watching something he has planned carefully. She looked at Elder Pat, whose expression was too blank, the deliberate blankness of a person working very hard to appear neutral. Amara stood up. The compound expected her to accept the cup. Instead, she reached out and knocked it cleanly out of Lami's hands. It hit the ground. The liquid spread dark across the dry earth. The compound exploded. "She is wicked," a woman in the back shouted. "Lami was only being respectful. Amara has gone too far." Dio stood up, his face hard with anger and embarrassment. "Amara, that is enough. You have insulted a guest in front of the whole village. Apologize, now." Amara looked at him. Her face did something that the people who saw it would describe differently for years afterwards. Some said anger, some said hurt, and a few, the ones watching most carefully, said she looked like a person who has just realized that they are completely alone in knowing the truth.
I will not drink from a cup I did not ask for, brought by a woman who has not greeted me once since my wedding, at a moment chosen by men who are watching too carefully, and I will not apologize for knowing what I know." "You are embarrassing me," Dio said. "You can be embarrassed or you can be alive. I am choosing for you to be alive." She turned and walked out of the compound. Dio sat back down heavily. The celebration continued, but the air had changed completely. Malam Gero sat very still. Elder Pat looked at nothing. Nobody noticed what happened at the edge of the compound near the base of the old mango tree, where the spilled liquid had soaked into the earth. Nobody noticed except a young compound guard named Sola, who had been standing at that corner all evening, and who 10 minutes after the cup was knocked over, watched a small stray dog approach the wet patch, sniff it, and drink.
Malam Gero had not slept well in 3 weeks. It was not guilt. Men like Malam Gero had long ago made a private arrangement with their conscience, one that allowed them to sleep comfortably while doing harmful things. What kept him awake was calculation. Specifically, the calculation of how much longer he could operate before Amara found what he absolutely needed her not to find. He sat in Elder Pate's back room one night, a single candle between them, and laid out the problem plainly. "She has already gone through the household accounts," he said. "She is not stupid. She will move to the village accounts next, and when she does, she will find the land," Elder Pate finished. His voice was flat and dry as old wood. 2 years earlier, Malam Gero and Elder Pate had quietly sold a large section of land in Tuma's western district. The land was not theirs to sell. It was village land, held in trust for future generations by Elder Baba Seyun's office. They had found a buyer, collected the money between them, and buried the paperwork in a way they believed was impossible to trace. They had also, over several years, been adding a small herb mixture to the tea made regularly for both Baba Seyun and Dio. Not a quick poison, nothing that would kill fast and raise questions. Something slower, something that caused low energy, poor sleep, difficulty concentrating, and a general fog that made both men easier to manage and less likely to notice what was happening around them. With a sharp-eyed woman now in the household, tasting everything, questioning every ingredient, personally removing anything she did not approve, their access to Dio had been completely cut off. He was recovering, getting stronger, asking more questions. That was a serious problem. Malam Gero said, "She must go." Elder Pate reached into his robe and placed a small clay container on the table between them. It looked completely harmless in the candlelight, the kind of container that might hold eye medicine. "What is this?" Malam Gero asked. "It is called the silent water," Elder Pate said quietly. "No taste, no smell, dissolves completely in any drink. It first causes confusion. The person becomes irrational, says strange things, acts in ways that make everyone around them believe they have lost their mind. Then, within 2 days, the heart stops. By that point, it looks like sudden illness." Malam Gero looked at the container. "How do we get it to her? She tastes everything herself now. She trusts nothing that comes from her own hands." "We don't go directly. We go through someone she would never suspect, someone the whole village loves, someone gentle, someone who has her own reasons to want Amara gone, but who appears to want nothing but peace." They looked at each other across the candle. Both said the name at the same moment. Lami. The approach. Lami's wound was still fresh. She had been so certain, so quietly, absolutely certain that she was the right choice. She had prepared for that gathering the way you prepare for something you already believe is yours. She was gracious. She was perfect. She had said every correct thing. And Amara, loud, sharp,
rough-edged Amara from the firewood cutter's family, had been chosen. Instead, Lami smiled through the whole thing. She congratulated Amara's mother. She said all the right things. Then she went home and sat very still in her room for a long time. When Malam Jero came to her with his story that Amara had used spiritual means to confuse Baba Sayun's judgment, that the elders were troubled, that a truth-revealing drink given to Amara at the right public moment would expose her manipulation and cause her to leave the household willingly and peacefully, Lami listened. She knew it sounded strange. In the honest part of herself, she knew she should ask more questions, should think more carefully. But ambition is a very effective silencer of honest questions. She agreed. The annual harvest gathering was in 3 days. The whole village would be there. The perfect moment.
Sola was 19 years old. He had worked as a guard at Baba Sayun's compound for 2 years. He had seen arguments, celebrations, funerals, and weddings. He had never seen anything that turned his blood cold the way what happened next did. The dog lapped up the liquid eagerly. For a moment, nothing happened at all. Then the dog made a sound, high-pitched, nothing like a dog's normal voice. It stumbled sideways. It snapped its jaw at the air. It began to spin in tight circles, eyes rolling back, legs jerking strangely. It bit into the bark of the mango tree so hard that when it pulled away, its gums were bleeding. Then it fell. It lay on the ground completely still. Its chest rose once, twice, and stopped. Sola stood frozen for 5 full seconds. Then he ran. He found Baba Sayun in his private room at the back of the compound, still in his harvest wrapper, looking tired the way very old men look at the end of a long and heavy day. Dio was with him. They had been talking about Amara. Dio's voice frustrated, Baba Sayun listening in the careful, quiet way he always listened. "Baba," Sola's voice came out strange and high. "The cup, the drink that was spilled at the mango tree, a dog drank it." Baba Sayun went very still. "The dog is dead, Baba," Sola said. "I watched it happen. Less than 2 minutes." The room held 3 people. All 3 went completely silent. Then Dio sat down. Not the sitting of a tired man, but the sitting of a man whose legs have simply stopped working. Baba Sayun walked to the window. He looked out at the dark compound. He was quiet for a long time. When he turned back, his expression was not of a shocked man. It was the expression of a man who has just had a long, difficult suspicion confirmed. "Go and find Amara," he said to Sola quietly. "Tell her I need to speak with her, now." The conversation. Amara had gone to her father's house. She sat on the step outside with her headgear untied and her wrapper loose at the shoulder. She held herself with a straight back and an empty face, but her hands, folded tightly in her lap, were saying something different. When Sola found her and said Baba Sayun was asking for her, she stood immediately. She did not ask why. She followed. In Baba Sayun's private room, it was just the 2 of them. The old man told her about the dog. He watched her face while he spoke. She was not surprised the way a person is surprised by new information. She was surprised the way a person hears their own quiet suspicion spoken out loud the first time. "I knew something was wrong with that cup. I didn't know what, exactly. I just knew." "How did you know?" he asked. Malam Gero was watching too carefully. When a person watches you for a reason, their face holds still in a particular way, like they are waiting for a result. I have seen that face before in the market, on people who want to know if you're going to accept something you should not accept. She paused.
And Lami has not looked at me directly once since the wedding. People who truly wish you peace look at you eventually. She never did. Baba Sayun sat down. I owe you a story, he said. Amara waited. Dayo's father, my younger brother, died when Dayo was 9. We were told it was a sudden illness, unexpected and fast. The old man's hands rested on his knees, completely still. I was younger then. I believed it. I mourned, and I moved forward. He paused. 3 years ago, I found papers in my brother's things that I had stored for 30 years and never opened. Letters, accounts, records of an arrangement that Malam Gero had been building quietly then, too. My brother had started to discover it. He had been writing down what he found. Amara said nothing. She was very still. He stopped writing suddenly. 3 weeks after his last entry, he was dead. The silence between them was very heavy. I could not prove it, the old man continued. I had suspicion in old papers, not proof. Malam Gero is careful. He has been careful for 30 years. He looked at her steadily. I went to the oracle. The oracle told me, you are surrounded by those who smile and harm. The only person who can see them clearly is someone who does not need their approval. Find a woman who tells truth, even when it costs her. A woman who has already shown the village that she is not afraid to be disliked. That woman's eyes will catch what yours cannot. Amara looked at him for a long moment. So at the gathering, she said slowly, when you chose me, I was not only choosing Dayo's wife, said Baba Sayun simply. I was looking for a specific kind of person, and you were the only one there who was exactly what was needed. Amara was quiet. You could have told me, she said. If I had told you, the old man said, you would have acted like a person who had been told. You needed to simply be yourself. That is what made you safe, and what made you see clearly. Amara sat with that for a while. Then she straightened. What do you need me to do now? She asked.
The following morning, Baba Sayun summoned the entire village. He gave no reason in the summons. He simply sent word using the tone that in Tumba meant there was no polite way to refuse. By mid-morning, the compound was full. Malam Gero and Elder Pate stood near the front, composed and steady. They had heard about the dog. Word moved fast through compound servants, but they had decided it proved nothing specific about them. The cup had passed through several hands. There was no direct evidence connecting them. They were safe. Lami stood slightly behind them, her hands folded, her expression serene. Baba Sayun sat in his high chair, Dayo beside him, Amara on Dayo's other side. The old man did not waste time. Last night, at the harvest, a cup of palm wine was brought to my nephew's wife as a gift of peace. A short time after, it was spilled on the ground. A dog drank the liquid. The dog died within 2 minutes. The compound erupted in whispers. We have the dog, Baba Sayun said, his voice even. We have the cup, we have a witness who stood at that corner all evening, and we have the container from which the substance came, found this morning in the back room of Elder Pate's house during a search the council authorized at first light. Elder Pate's composure held. He stepped forward. Baba, these are serious accusations without... The container still has residue, Baba Sayun said. The village healer examined it this morning and confirmed exactly what it is and where it comes from. It is not common. It does not end up in an elder's private room by accident. He looked at Pate steadily. Sit down. Something in the old man's voice, quiet, final, carrying the weight of a man who has waited 3 years for this moment, made Elder Pate sit down. Baba Sayun looked at Lami.
"Lami," he said, not unkindly, "I believe you did not fully understand what you were carrying. I believe you were told something that you chose to believe because it was easier than asking harder questions. You have one opportunity right now. Tell everything you know, completely, and the council will weigh that honesty in deciding your consequence." Lami's composure, the beautiful, practiced composure she had been building her whole life, finally broke completely. She told everything, every word Malam Gero had said to her, what he had told her the liquid was, what he had promised would happen. She was crying long before she finished. Malam Gero tried twice to speak. Both times Baba Sayun raised one hand and he stopped. "There is also the matter of the Western District land," the old man continued. "Those documents have been found. The sale was illegal. That land belonged to this village, to the children and grandchildren of every family sitting here today. It was sold without your knowledge or consent, and the money taken privately." His voice did not rise. It did not need to. "The council will handle the full accounting. Both men are removed from every position they hold in this village, effective now. Every arrangement they have touched in the past 10 years will be reviewed." The compound was the quietest it had ever been. Amara sat through all of it with her hands in her lap, her back straight, her eyes moving carefully from face to face. Later that evening, only family remained in the compound. Dio sat beside Amara under the old mango tree. He was quiet for a long time. "I told you to apologize," he finally said, "in front of everyone." "Yes," Amara said. "And you refused." "Yes." "And if you had been wrong," he asked quietly, "if the cup had just been palm wine?" Amara thought about it honestly. "Then I would have apologized, properly, in front of everyone." She paused. "But I was not wrong." "How were you so sure?" asked he. "I was not sure. I was just not willing to be polite about my own death." Dio looked at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, sudden, real, the deep kind. He put his mouth over it. The laugh kept coming. Amara watched him with an expression that was not quite a smile, but was very close to one.
Malam Gero and Elder Pate were removed from all positions. The land recovery took 3 years of difficult legal work, but most of it came back to the village. Lami worked in the village school for 2 years as part of her consequence, not as a punishment exactly, but because Baba Sayun believed that a person who had allowed ambition to silence honest questions needed time in service to something larger than themselves. She became, slowly and genuinely, a good teacher. She and Amara were never close friends, but they reached a kind of respect, the kind between two people who have seen each other clearly under difficult circumstances. Dio grew stronger every year. The fog that had settled over him for so long cleared completely within 6 months of Amara entering the household. Understanding what had been done to him, the slow, patient accumulation of small harmings, made him both more careful and more compassionate. He became, in the years that followed, one of the most trusted leaders in the entire region. Amara did not change. She was still loud. She still argued with traitors who tried to cheat. She still said exactly what she thought in exactly the way that made people uncomfortable. She still walked like she owned every road in Tumba. But the village stopped calling her the mouth that never closed. They called her something else. They called her the one who sees. Because they had learned, not easily, not comfortably, but truly, that there is a kind of person in every community who is difficult because they are honest, who is sharp because they refuse to be dulled by the long, quiet pressure of people who need them not to notice things. They are loud because what they are saying is true, and truth, when it is not welcome, has to fight to be heard. These people are inconvenient. They embarrass you,
They refuse to apologize. They tell you that you are wrong and do not soften it. They are also, in the moments that matter most, the ones who knock the cup out of your hand. One evening, years later, Baba Sayun sat on the veranda of Dayo's compound in the hour before sunset, the time that belongs to old men and long thoughts. His grandson, a boy of 5 with his mother's eyes and his father's voice, was chasing a chicken around the compound yard. The chicken was losing. Lami came out and sat beside the old man. She had 2 cups of palm wine. "He is going to catch it," she said. "I know," said the old man. "The chicken knows it too. Look at how it runs." They sat in comfortable silence. "You knew from the beginning," Amara said, "not as an accusation, just naming something true." "I knew what I needed. I didn't know it would be you specifically until you spoke. And if I had given a gentle answer at the gathering, then I would have kept looking, but I would have known you were not the one." Amara nodded slowly. "The oracle said someone who doesn't need approval would see them clearly." "Yes." "And you believed it?" "I have lived long enough to believe that our difficult habits are sometimes exactly what the moment requires." He looked at her. "Your sharpness was never the problem the village said it was. The problem was that the people around you needed you to be dull." In the yard, the boy caught the chicken. He held it up with enormous triumph on his face. "Good," Amara said. "Now let it go." The boy looked at her. "We catch things to know we can. We let them go to show we are not afraid." The boy released the chicken. It ran. He laughed and chased it again. Baba Sayun sipped his palm wine. "That boy is going to be interesting," he said. "Good," Amara said. "The world has more than enough easy people."
Sometimes the person who embarrasses you in public is the only one paying close enough attention to protect you. Sometimes the voice that is too loud is simply too loud for the lies that surround it. Sometimes what looks like bad character is just honesty that refused to be trained away by the long, quiet pressure of people who needed you not to see things. Amara was never the problem. The people who needed her to be silent were the problem. And the old man who had lived long enough to tell the difference between the two was the wisest person in Tumba. Not because of his power, but because he had the courage to choose truth over comfort, even when truth arrived with rough edges and no apology. That is the story of the woman with the worst reputation in the village and the grandfather figure who chose her anyway. Now you know why. Did this story move you? If this story made you think of someone who was too much but was actually the only one telling the truth, share this story with them today. Like, follow, share. Don't miss the next one.